If I did my research correctly, Natasha Denona released her Biba palette in March of 2019. And for a palette that's almost 6 years old at this point, I would say it's still pretty relevant. When Natasha Denona releases a neutral tone palette, it is compared to the Biba palette. When other brands release neutral tone palettes, a lot of the times it's compared to the Biba palette. I've seen many creators here on YouTube talk about their favorite neutral palettes of all time or just favorite palettes in general of all time. And a lot of times the Biba palette is included on those lists. So I have always wanted to try this palette, but I never bit the bullet and purchased it because it's $129, which is a lot of money. I was not a Natasha Denona fan back in 2019. When she released the Biba palette, I kind of discovered her and started really loving her eyeshadow palettes a year later in 2020. So for the past 5-ish years, this palette has been on my radar to pick up and try out. And it has been on sale a couple times over the years, but I just never wanted to purchase it until Natasha Denona did a pretty good Black Friday sale a couple months ago, and I was able to pick up a bundle with the Biba palette, which we are here to try out today for you guys. I'm so excited. It has been sitting in my makeup room for the past like 2-ish months, month and a half, just staring at me like, are you going to use me? Are you going to try me? I know you're excited to. The bundle also came with the mini Biba palette, which I've had my eye on for a few years at this point as well. I've used this 2 or 3 times off of camera and I really enjoyed this palette. It came with a mini nude palette as well, which I was planning on rebuying at some point anyways, because the one that I own is very loved, very well used. I've got pans in 2 of them and it's really old at this point. I got this in 2019, so oh, well then I guess I was a fan of Natasha Denona in 2019. So I think I totally just lied to you in the intro because I used this on my honeymoon when I got married in 2019 in the summer. So disregard everything I said in the intro. I was lying to you guys. Sorry about that. But I've loved this palette forever and I planned on picking up a new one anyway. So when it came in the bundle, I was excited about that. And then also in the bundle, I mean, I was telling you, this was a good deal. I got a Natasha Denona My Dream lipstick in the shade Natasha, which I already own, but it's like a little baby nub and I love this lipstick. So I thought that was a pretty good deal. Don't quote me because I bought this a couple months ago and I already deleted the email, but I'm pretty sure that bundle was like $138. So I was figuring for $10 more than what the Biba palette costs on its own, I got all those extra goodies that I either already know I love or have been wanting to try for a while. So I thought that was a really good deal. So like I said, I finally picked up the Biba palette. I have been wanting to try this for years, and I am not gonna lie, it is very beautiful in person. My expectations are high. I've heard nothing but amazing things about this palette, so I'm very excited to try it out. I do want to do some swatches, mainly for myself, because this is a brand new palette and I haven't even touched it or anything yet. I know this is not a new palette to the market by any means. Like I said, it's almost 6 years old. But I just think that that is really cool that this palette has almost like stood the test of time. It's still pretty relevant in the makeup world. And as a lot of us probably know, the makeup world moves very quickly. So products that are brand new and hot and poppin', you know, they're relevant and they're talked about a lot for maybe a month or two and then you never really hear of them again. So the fact that this palette is still referred to, still talked about all the time, makes me that much more excited to try it out. So I'm going to go ahead and do swatches. I'm just going to swatch the top row, the middle row, and then the bottom row. The first shade we have is called Rustic, which this is a metallic copper. Then we have Prairie, which is a matte camel color. Cocoa is described as a matte dark burgundy. Freckle is a matte antique nude. I've never heard a eyeshadow palette be described like that. Or eyeshadow palette shade be described like that. And then we have Shine, which is a metallic champagne. This is giving me mini nude vibes though, I'm not gonna lie, which I already own obviously, but that's okay. The second row we have Pasha, which is a matte red. Monroe is a metallic pink champagne. Rayon is a matte medium burgundy. I think this is one of her cream to powders maybe, question mark. Buff is a matte antique pink. And then Tone is a matte clay. Yeah, these two, Rayon and Tone, feel like her cream to powder formulation. Not my favorite formulation from her. And then the last row we have Seed, which is a matte dark chocolate. Tour is a matte dark gray brown. Sculpture is a matte light gray. Spot is a matte dark black. And last but not least, we have Tusk, which is a matte light beige. I'm going to do another swatch of that. That's like pretty much my skin tone. All right, so that is a palette all swatched out. I like it. It's like the neutrally vibes that I am here for these days. I don't really wear colorful makeup really at all. So this is definitely up my alley. I'm not insanely impressed by these swatches. They just swatched like a normal eyeshadow palette, and I've heard such good things about this formulation, how it's like one of the best Natasha Denona formulations. It's creamy, it's smooth on the eyes, it blends well. So obviously swatches don't tell the whole story. I'm excited to get it on my eyes as well, but upon swatching, I'm not too impressed with it, but I'm still excited. So I think I am going to go ahead and do 2 different eye looks for you guys. It's a Monday here when I'm filming this, and Ivy is at the Sitters, but she has swim lessons tonight, and it is my night to get in with her. So I'm going to have to take my makeup off anyways. So I think we are going to try out 2 different eye looks. I don't know how different they're going to be because this palette is pretty neutral tone, and I don't know how much I will gravitate towards these 4 shades down here at the bottom. Those are really not the shades I bought the palette for. I bought it for the rest of the shades. I'm going to go ahead and prime my eyes with my Ulta Beauty Matte Veil Longwear Eye Primer. I've really been enjoying this. This is a little bit newer to me. I've only been using it for maybe a month or so, and I've really been liking it. I always squeeze out too much, but other than that, I like it. Let me know down below in the comments, do you have this palette? I feel like Natasha Denona is becoming more of a mainstream brand that more people know about her, but I would assume that the everyday consumer still doesn't really know who Natasha Denona's, like what her brand is. I feel like I'm the last person on earth trying this palette in the makeup beauty realm because it is so old, so well loved, so hyped up, but I know that that's like not the case, obviously, with how expensive it is and all of that. So I would love to hear from you guys down below if you have this palette, if you like it, if you use it as much as I hope I am going to use it, you know, with how much money I spent on it and stuff. I just would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this palette down below if you've tried it, or if you haven't, would you ever spend that much on an eyeshadow palette? Since these are such neutrally tones that people would probably wear on the daily basis, it makes more sense to spend a lot of money on an eyeshadow palette like this versus like a colorful one or one that you wouldn't use very much. But yeah, I'm just like very curious your guys' thoughts down below on this palette. Okay, for the first eye, I think I'm going to start off with this shade right here, which that is called Prairie, and I'm going to put it in my crease with a What's Up Beauty R104. I usually like these mustardy tones on my eyes. I think they're really, really pretty. That shade did have a lot of kick up in the pan though. It seems to be a really soft formulation, which isn't a bad thing. It just can kind of get a little messy, but I personally don't mind it. I did want to mention it though. I'm going to go in with a little light second layer of Prairie, just build it up a little bit. This is a really pretty shade. It's not getting very patchy on me, which I appreciate. I'm not into colorful makeup at all, but this is not too colorful for me, even though it's leaning a little orangey yellow. I still think this is wearable. Next, I want to go into this Freckle shade, and then we are also probably going to dip into this Cocoa shade as well. We're going to take Freckle on a What's Up Beauty R105 and put that on my outer corner. Okay, so these are definitely different, which I appreciate. They don't look very similar in the pan, but I've noticed sometimes with Natasha Denona, shades that are in the same family, like pink tones, green tones, can look different in the pan, but then show up pretty much the same on the eyeball, which is definitely a bummer for how much you spend on her palettes. These are looking different on the eye. This is definitely more of a orange yellow tone, mustardy, and this is definitely like a neutrally brown shade. I like that. I like that Freckle shade. I think that's going to be a really good transition shade as well. Going to re-emphasize that Prairie shade a little bit. I didn't put any extra product on the brush, just rebuffing and blending. This Freckle shade is getting a little bit patchy out here on my corner. If you can see my outer corner, I'm not entirely sure what's going on with that. I mean, my skin is going through it. I am just dry all over my body, like my face, my hands, my fingernails, like around my fingernails are just so dry, cracking and bleeding. I don't know what it is with winter this year, but I am just like, my body is going through it. My whole body is dry. So maybe my eyelids are dry and like that's why it's getting patchy. I don't know. And then I normally would probably just leave it here, but because I want to try more shades for you guys and I don't mind if it gets deep and smoky, I'm going to have to take this off anyway, sadly. I am going to take that Cocoa shade on a Refer Beauty 14 and we're just, I don't think it's Refer Beauty, it's just Refer 14. And we're going to pack that also on the outer corner, just deepen it a little bit. All 3 of these mattes so far have been very, very powdery. Lots of kick up in the pan. This is definitely adding to the patchiness, but really my eyelids are always patchy. I mention this every time I try a new eyeshadow palette on my channel, and I feel like I have to, because if you are a new viewer of mine based off this video or really any other video where I'm trying out eyeshadow, I don't want you to look at me applying eyeshadow and seeing it get patchy on me like it is right now and being confused why I'm not talking about it or confronting that issue. But my eyelids are very finicky. I really think it's the skin on my eyelids. Every single solitary eyeshadow formulation brand, it does not matter. It always gets patchy on me. So just because it's getting patchy and skippy on me does not mean it will do it to you. Maybe one day I will find a brand that doesn't do that. But yeah, I just wanted to address that. I'm going to take a little bit more of that Freckle, buff and blend, and then no extra product on the Prairie brush. Yeah, that's looking good. I mean, it is definitely patchy on my eyelid, which is a bummer because this is such an expensive brand. All my other Natasha Denona palettes perform like this too. So, okay, next I want to put glitter primer on my lid, and I'm probably going to go ahead and cover up this matte in the outer corner. I just kind of wanted to see what it would look like. And we're going to take this shine shade on the inner portion of my lid, and then this one right here called Rustic, and put that towards like the middle outer portion of my eyelid. Maybe I shouldn't be using a glitter primer because maybe some people want to see what it looks like without one, but I just never don't use a glitter primer. Anytime I use any shimmer of any brand, any palette, I always use glitter primer. So we're going to take that Rustic shade, put it on the outer corner. Ooh, that's pretty. And then that shine shade and put this on the inner portion of my eyelid. This is just definitely giving me mini nude vibes. Like the matte shade looks really similar to that. This Rustic shade and this shine shade looks similar to these two shades. Now, I'm not knocking that because I love this palette. Clearly, I use the heck out of it. I rebought another one because I love it so much. So I'm not like upset about that. But if you already have the mini nude palette, this top row of the Biba palette, I feel like you don't need. Like you can get a really similar look with the mini nude, and that is $27 versus $129. So clearly you're saving a lot of money. The pans are smaller, but I've had this one for 6 years and I use it all of the time. I guess 5.5 years, and I use it all of the time, and I only have pans in 2 of the shades, and I use this a lot. So just keep that in mind. I'm just trying to give like a non-biased review that this is a really expensive palette, and yes, it's very hyped up, and yes, it's been relevant for a very long time, but like, do you need it? Did I need it? Do you know what I mean? So far I'm liking this look. It performed nicely. It looks really pretty on the eye. Like it's fine. I could have gotten a similar look with the palette I already own from the same brand. You know what I mean? So let's move on to this eye. For this one, I want to stick more in the middle row. That's more pinky tones. Like this is more like warm neutral tones, and these are more pinky-ish tones. So first I do want to try out this Tusk shade. I think it looks really, really pretty. It looked like it was like the same shade as my skin tone though, so we'll see what it looks like on my eye. Hi, puppy boy. What you doing, Bubs? Hello. I know your food's about to go. I know. Is your food about to go off? Are you about to have some lunchies? Yeah, you got like 10 minutes, Bubby. You starving? Oh no. So we're gonna take that on a BK Beauty 201 eyeshadow brush. That had a lot of kick up in the pan, like way more than the ones on top. All right, so this is 2 layers of that Tusk shade. Yeah, it's not showing up really at all. I think this will be a good blending out shade, but yeah, it's not really showing up. Okay, that's okay. We're going to try out a different shade. But like, if you can see here, there is just like a ton of fallout. Again, it doesn't really bother me. It's just messy, you know? Also, I forgot to mention this earlier in the video. If you see these scratch marks on my face, Ivy's little dagger claws got me. I was literally looking at her fingernails the other morning thinking, those look kind of long. I should probably, like, when's the last time I cut those? I should probably cut those soon. And then I was rocking her to sleep the other day, and she just full on, I mean, not on purpose, you know, she's like not even 2 years old, but she just like swiped at my face and got me good, got me there, a couple other places that did not bleed and scab. So if you see those, that's where that came from. Okay, next we're going to take this buff shade right here. We're going to put that into the crease as well. This is a BK Beauty 202 brush. Little second layer. Okay, that looks pretty. Again, getting a little patchy on my eyes, but you know, I do want to put a little bit more on. I feel like I'm having to build this shade a little bit. But I like it. It's pretty. It is kind of weird it's getting patchy out here though. Usually when I have patching issues, it's on the inner portion of my eye and not really the outer. So that is weird and not typical. And then I want to take this Pasha shade right here. We're going to use that same Referral 14. I just kind of wiped it off. Ooh, that Pasha shade's pretty. Burgundy wine color. Ooh, that's really pretty. I like that a lot. I'm really trying to circle and blend this. Yeah, this is getting real patchy, guys. I feel like it's my eyes and not the eyeshadow palette, but I don't know. Go back in with a little bit of that buff shade and buff it out. It's a good name for it. So I like the depth of this, but again, I want to try a couple more shades. I thought about doing this rayon shade right here, but whenever I swatch it, I don't know if it's really going to deepen it much. It doesn't look that much deeper than this Pasha shade. And this is, I think, a cream to powder formulation, which in the past I have struggled with, just getting a little bit patchy on me and just not blending correctly on me. So I'm not going to use that rayon shade or that tone shade because they both seem like those cream to powder formulations. However, I'm excited to give them a go and use them as one and dones. I think that would be really nice on the eyeballs on the eyelids. So instead we're going to take this Seed shade right here. Again, that same Referral 14, and we're just going to deepen out the outer corner. I don't know how much this is going to deepen it. I actually think that that Pasha shade that I used and this Seed shade are similar in depth, just different tones. This seed shade is a more neutrally brown, while the other one is like a burgundy wine color. So I actually don't think it's deepening it too much. It just kind of changed the tone, which is fine. And then I'm going to put glitter primer all over my lid. Not all over, but the inner portion of my lid. And then we're going to go ahead and use this Monroe shade, which is the only other shade, shimmer shade in the palette. There's only 3. And that just looks like a really pretty champagne-y color. Ooh, yeah. That's really pretty. I like that color. Okay, I'm going to stop it there. Those are the 2 looks that I came up with the Natasha Denona Biba palette. Trying it out for the first time. I would be intrigued to try out these 3 shades right here. I actually think it would be a really cool tone eye look to put this in the crease, this on the outer corner and up into the crease, maybe use this as a liner or deepen it a little bit. I am intrigued to try those shades. I just didn't want to today. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of my makeup off camera. I'm not going to come back on and do the lower lash line because my lower lash lines are very simple. They're usually just 1 shade. So I will tell you which shade I use to finish up the lower lash lines, but I'm not going to show it on camera because it's pretty boring to watch. So let me go ahead and finish the rest of my makeup and then I will wrap up my thoughts on this palette. And if I think that you need to spend $129 on this very hyped up palette, or if I'm happy that I spent $129 on this very hyped up palette. So I'll be right back. My makeup went kind of south, guys. I'm not gonna lie. First, I'm gonna show you the finished look out of those 2 eye looks. I do think they are really, really pretty. I do like how they look on my eyes. I feel confident I would wear and like recreate either one of these eye looks in the future. I think this one is my favorite of the 2, but I do still really enjoy both of them. I'll run down the rest of my makeup in case you're curious, but it will be listed and linked in my description box. For primer, I use my Laura Mercier Pure Canvas Primer, but the blurring one. Foundation was my NARS Light Reflecting Foundation, and in this I have the shade L1 Oslo. Concealer was my Tower 28 Serum Concealer, and in this I have the shade BU, or I think it's just Boo. Hi, Pepper. Oh. I then used my Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Contour one in the shade Fair. This is a new shade that she just recently released. I went ahead and set down my makeup. This was where it went south, you guys. I set down my makeup with the Givenchy. This is their Prisme Libre, just loose powder. Okay, I love this stuff. I love this stuff so much. I bought it during the Sephora sale about a year ago at this point, a mini, and I fell in love with it. It was a whole thing. Givenchy reformulated it. Everyone hated it. And when I was in Sephora recently, I asked them, I said, is this the old formulation or the new formulation? And the girl told me that they pulled all the other old Givenchy powders off the shelf, that they weren't selling well, that there was like some, I don't know. She said they pulled them all off. So I assumed that this was the old formulation, the one that I already own, that I love. It is not. It is not at all. I don't think it's the same one that everyone was hating on, because that one, people were saying it was almost like reflecting and shimmery and shiny, and this isn't doing that to me. So it is like mattifying like the old powder is, but it is not as blurring as it is. It's drying. My setting spray fixed it, but it was like clinging super weird right here. I don't know. I got duped. I got duped by the Sephora employee. I'm really, really bummed about it. I bought this and I might end up returning it because it is nothing like the old formulation. I don't know what happened with the communication of me asking and her. I don't know what happened. So that is a really big bummer. So I only set my T-zone with that, and I went ahead and set the rest of my face with the Bare Minerals Original Mineral Veil. I don't know how I feel about this. I'm still trying it out. I know that that is not a new product at all either, but I don't know how I feel about it. Then I used my Maybelline City Bronzer as my powder bronzer. Oh, before I set down my face, sorry, I forgot. I used my Buxom Plump Shot Collagen Peptides Plumping Blush in the shade Blissful Buff, and then over top of that, after I set my face, I used my Buxom Wanderlust Primer Infused Blush in the shade Seychelles. They name their product names tongue twisters. My Dior Highlight Quad is my highlight, you know. Elf Wow Brow, you already know. Clio Kill Lash Mascara, you already know. For lips, I used my Natasha Denona I Need a Nude Lip Crayon in the shade Noah. And then I went ahead and topped it with the I Need a Nude lipstick in the shade Liron. I don't like this. It's like a really orangey sort of shade. And I wanted to try it out again today because I haven't worn it in forever. And yeah, I don't like the tone on me. I think I'm going to end up donating this and decluttering it because it's new. It's not new, but like I haven't used a ton of it. And I feel like it could be given to a home that would get a lot better use out of it. I just don't like the tone on me. It's too like orangey. And then I set my face with my Cali Ray Surf Proof Setting Spray. All right, the Biba palette. How do I explain this? I was thinking about it as I was doing the rest of my makeup, like what I was going to say when I came back on. It was like giving you my final thoughts and all that. I like this palette. I like the 2 eye looks I made. I think they're beautiful. I didn't really struggle. Some of the pats did get Some of the mattes did get patchy on me, but I'm not too concerned about that. You can't really notice it right now when the rest of my makeup is done. You would never, I don't think, look at me and be able to see that my eyeshadow is a little bit patchy. I mean, maybe a little bit out here if you're like a makeup lover and you're all up in my grill, but for the most part, the average person just glancing at me, because people are not looking at you as severely and intensely as maybe you think they are. Like, they're not scrutinizing you like you are scrutinizing yourself. So I don't think anyone would look at me and say like, oh, her eyeshadow's patchy. You know what I mean? So overall, I do like this palette. I think it's beautiful. After trying it out though, I'm a little confused by the bundle that I purchased, because while I do still inherently think it was a good deal to get all three of these palettes and the lipstick together for like $10 more than just this palette, I do think that's a good deal. They're so similar to each other. I'm confused by Natasha Denona putting them together in a bundle knowing that they're so similar. Like, this eyeshadow I could have 100% got with the mini nude palette. Like, I could have definitely got a look just like this with the mini nude palette. And even this side of my eye, I could have definitely gotten a really similar eyeshadow look with the mini Biba palette. I used this palette yesterday in my time. One of my best friends is having a baby in March, and so we had her baby shower, and I used this palette for my look for that day, and really pretty much made the same look that I made here today with the Biba palette. I put this in my crease, this on the outer corner and up into my crease, mix a little bit of this up into the outer corner and up into my crease, and then this all over my lid. And it looked pretty much exactly the same, except this is a tiny bit pinker. Like, my crease was a little bit pinker, and that's kind of it. Other than that, it was a very, very similar look. So the bundle I'm just kind of confused about, because the mini nude and the mini Biba are so close to the Biba. Granted, this is the mini Biba, like that makes sense, but I don't know. I just was confused by the bundle. Again, I still think it's a good deal. I'm so glad I bought it. But if you are someone who has either one of these palettes, which makes more sense that you would because they're $27 versus $129, I absolutely do not think you would need the Biba palette. Do I think it's pretty? Yes. Do I think that I will get a lot of use out of it? Yes, question mark. I mean, maybe not, because I have these minis and they're easier to reach for and they're easier to grab, and I would definitely pack these on a trip over this big Biba palette, you know what I mean? But I did enjoy the looks. I enjoyed my experience. I do like this palette. I don't know, for all the hype that it gets and the fact that it's been such a popular palette for so long, it's not that I'm not impressed by it. It's just like she's already came out with other palettes very similar. It's almost like she released the Biba palette and saw how popular and well loved it was, that she's just kind of been releasing smaller palettes afterwards that are very, very similar, in the same tone, in the same families, that you can get really similar looks with, trying to almost recreate that success of the Biba palette. Am I making sense? I feel like I am. I like this palette. It's beautiful. I liked my experience with it. I love these two eye looks. I just could get them with other palettes I already owned from her. I mean, I guess I didn't already own the mini Biba. It came with the bundle, but I've had my eye on this for a really long time, and I feel like it would have just made more sense to keep my mini nude and buy the mini Biba for $27 than this whole bundle for like $135 or $138 or whatever it was. Do you know what I mean? Like, again, I'm not upset that I bought it. I'm not upset that I spent that money. I am happy I finally got to try the dang Biba palette. I mean, it has been hyped up and so well loved for so stinking long. I do think I'll be able to get a little bit different look out of these tones down at the bottom that I did not dabble into today. Maybe I should have, but one day I will try these out. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm just like a little conflicted by this palette. I guess I just didn't need it, which I don't need any more eyeshadow. I mean, truly, I have enough eyeshadow to last the rest of my lifetime. And actually, I'm debating if I want to film an eyeshadow palette declutter. I filmed one about a year ago, so it's been a while since I decluttered my palette. I just feel like I need to sit down and be really realistic with myself about what palettes I'm actually going to keep and use versus what palettes I want to keep for the one-off chance I might possibly need a shade in the palette. You know what I mean? I might film that later today. I'm kind of like just thinking out loud at this point. So possibly look out for a eyeshadow palette declutter coming up in the future. But yeah, again, I would be so curious your thoughts down below on this palette. Do you have it? Do you love it? Honestly, I don't think you need to buy this. I think if these are not the tones you're buying the palette for, which I would guess a lot of people are not going to be buying the palette for these tones, I think it would just make more sense for you to spend a little less money and buy the mini nude and the mini Biba and get very, very, very similar eye looks with these two that you could get with the Biba. I didn't tell you, I'm so sorry. I just jumped right into complaining about that powder and talking about this palette that I didn't tell you how I finished the look. So for this eye look, all I did was run that prairie, oh actually I'm sorry, I mixed prairie and freckle together and ran that along there. And then for this eye look, I used this buff shade. I will say both of them lines were looking very harsh, so I did take this tusk shade and blend it out with it. So that was a good use of this shade. I wasn't sure how I would use it because it's essentially my skin tone, but I did enjoy that I was able to blend out the lower lash line and make it less harsh. So that was nice. So yeah, that was me finally trying the Natasha Denona Biba palette after wanting to try it for like 6 years. Let me know down below your thoughts on it. Do you like these eye looks? Are you going to pick up this palette? Maybe if it's on sale again? I don't know. You guys know. I love hearing from you guys down below in the comments and talking to you. I really do love it. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. You're awesome and I love you. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you have not yet. And I hope to see you in my next video. Bye guys.